What is the answer to life? Apathy? Despair? Death? What is even the purpose of living, of existence? All of these are but a few questions posed by the 2006 Atlas RPG, Persona 3.
君はね、確かにあの時私のそばにいた。いつだっていつだっていつだってすぐ横で笑っていた。なくしても取り戻す君を I will never leave you. Battle, then I'll take it to the street where there's no rules. Take off the gloves, refuse to down. Gotta prove my skills, so get down. My lyrical depth to roll battles, not down now. Gotta shoot to kill, I shoot to skill. Don't you be afraid, man, it's gotta do how it feels. 60, 70, 8 to 9, 10. I flip the script to make it to the top 10. Go.
Persona 3 and its later enhancements, Persona 3 FES and Persona 3 Portable, as well as its remake, Persona 3 Reload, all give off two distinct tones very early on. From the dark and foreboding atmosphere of the dark hour to the bright and serene vibe of Gekkoukan High School, these different and contrasting settings showcase the duality of one of the game's major themes, that being the answer to life. But to truly understand the concept of life, the game shows us the inverse, something so intrinsically linked to the concept that understanding it is crucial to not just the world of the game, but to our own lives as well, that of which being death. But to invoke death, one must cause it. One must evoke it. In Persona 3, in order to summon and control one's persona, one must use a device known as an evoker. But while it resembles a gun, it doesn't kill. Instead, it acts as a bridge between humans and their personas. Because personas are only manifest under duress, and what better stress-inducing action than pulling a gun-like object to your head and pulling the trigger.
I am thou, thou art I. From the sea of thy soul I come. I am Orpheus, master of strings.
You are death. Whether you take the role of Makoto Yuki or Kotone Shiomi, you, the main character, represent death. You witness the death of your parents as a child, incidentally having a piece of death sealed inside you to prevent unimaginable chaos. The main personas you wield throughout your journey each represent death. One is a tragedy, the other is the incarnate, whilst the final form is the transcendent. Orpheus, a skilled musician from Greek mythology, traveled down to the underworld to rescue his wife Eurydice and request that she be allowed to leave. His unmatched ability with the lyre convinced the ruler of the underworld, Hades and Persephone, to allow Eurydice to leave, but on one condition: that Orpheus walk in front and not look back at his wife until they had both left the underworld. But, in an act of foolishness, Orpheus looked back to see if his wife was following him, thusly seeing her vanish, this time for good. Orpheus, of the Fool Arcana, made a foolish choice in the face of death. You are the fool, foolish to think you can beat back death and despair. And yet, you do. Thanatos, the Greek personification of death. He is also known as a harbinger of peaceful death. After a major story revelation, the protagonist has the ability to wield the ultimate arcana of death. Oftentimes, this is marketed as the protagonist's ultimate persona, the final step in the journey you take. But while you have become death, that doesn't mean you've conquered it. Messiah can be related to many cultures. Often the archetype is seen as a savior of sorts, one who brings salvation during the end of days, and Nyx attempting to destroy the world definitely seems to qualify. The Messiah persona is the final persona of the Judgment Arcana, the final and ultimate persona to aid the protagonist in saving the world, showcasing that they have accepted death and are no longer constrained by its will and freely transcends its meaning. But how does this connect to life? Well, equating the persona Messiah to the Christian equivalent gives us the answer, because while their Messiah dies, he also comes back. He rises up and brings life and complete salvation. So, by transcending death, you have become life. So, the life that saves the world. The life that saves your friends and companions in more ways than one. Many of your social links throughout the game relate to death. Bunkichi and Mitsuko's son died, and through your help, they learned to overcome and accept his death, learning just how many people's lives he touched. Keisuke's Hiragi decides to become a doctor of his own volition, to save lives because he has the skill to. Through the protagonist's help, Bebe learns of how his recently deceased aunt's community helped him go to school in Japan, deciding to comfort his grieving uncle instead of pursuing his own desires. Mamori's father died many years ago, leading to his decision to forego college to instead find a job to support his poor family. Nozomi learns not to resent his dead brother, but to make him proud instead. And Akinari, despite dying, learns to cherish life, to find meaning even during his final days. All of these social links relate to death, overcoming and facing it head on, as well as finding their reason to live. The same is true for your companions in SEAS, aka the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad. Each member has faced death and become stronger, both in terms of their sense of self, as well as the persona's strength, evolving to a fuller and complete form. Yukara Takeba is the first member of SEAS you meet on your journey. Her father, Eiichiro, was one of the lead scientists who worked with the Kirijo group. The group later attempted to summon Nyx and death, where Eiichiro forestalled this process. Yukari, throughout the game's events, is misled on what happened to her father and what his true intentions were. She blames him for dying as well as her mother's downward spiral. But, in the end, the truth comes out, and Yukari makes peace with her father, vowing to uphold his legacy and end the dark hour, and to no longer be beholden to doubt and despair. Junpei Iori, at first, seems to be a jokester and immature, but there's a deeper feelings hidden by this facade. He is full of insecurities and harbors a jealousy toward the protagonist due to their apparent skill and leadership capabilities. He falls in love with a girl named Chidori, a member of the enemy team, Strega. This love ultimately results in him being shot and killed. A temporary state, as Chidori revives him at the cost of her own life. Her sacrifice serves as a moment of revelation for Junpei that leaves him to become more determined to end the dark hour, and to make sure the love of his life sacrificed was not in vain. And perhaps they weren't, because depending on the player's actions, Chidori may come back to life, and be given another chance. A chance due in part to Junpei. He finds this his reason to keep moving forward, his reason to live, and to face tomorrow head on. Akihiko Sanada's life seemed to be one tragedy after another. Growing up in an orphanage that was already a big strain on him, which only got worse when his little sister died in a fire that destroyed the orphanage. This early brush with death made him commit himself to become stronger, no matter what. His best friend, Shinjiro, supported him through this, and they both eventually joined SEAS. After a devastating incident, he further descends into becoming stronger, allowing it to consume him. When Shinjiro is later murdered, Akihiko is devastated. His friend, through thick and thin, is dead. This initially causes him great grief before eventually accepting both his obsession of power as well as his dear friend's death. He knows that Shinjiro would want him to continue to live, and so, in the name of his friend, he does. Fuka Yamagishi doesn't have a tragic backstory, at least in the traditional sense. A shy and bullied student, she is trapped within Tartarus. During her rescue attempt, she awakens her persona's power when threatened with almost certain death. This event changes Fuka dramatically. She begins to open up and become more confident. These revelations and new friendships make her realize her desire to connect with her friends and to help them overcome any adversity, even if it means giving them terrible cooking. Mitsuro Kirijo's family legacy is complicated. Her grandfather was the one who originally tried to orchestrate the fall and kill everyone. This has instilled in Mitsuru immense guilt for her family's actions, which has caused her to undergo terrible things to atone. She has fought shadows longer than anyone else, awakening her persona at a young age, an age that one should never have to go through the stress of summoning a persona. She feels responsible for each death to a shadow, a feeling that only compounds after her father is killed during a devastating betrayal. This death erodes her will to live and destroys her sense of self-worth. After a period of loathing and despair, she is giving a pep talk and shown what she is doing to herself and everyone else. How her life has changed and how she still has plenty part to play in beating the dark hour, leading the Kirijo Group to a brighter and better future. She resolves to meaningfully use her family's company and legacy for good. Through these realizations, she has found her reason to live once again. Koromaru is a Shiba Inu, aka a literal dog. A stray dog that some members of SEAS are familiar with. At first, he seemed like a normal dog with a sad past. His previous owner was killed in an accident, and he has decided to loyally wait and protect the shrine his owner worked at, evoking the story of Hachiko, a story you should definitely look into. Eventually, he is recruited into SEAS when he kills a rogue shadow and shows evidence of being able to summon a persona. He then loyally remains and fights alongside the group, bonding with them just like his previous owner, and fights to protect them from all who would bring them harm, having not only discovered a reason to live, but also earning him the title of Goodest Boy. Ken Amada had to bear witness to what no child should ever have to: the murder of his mother, right in front of him. He tries to tell the police of how she died, but no one believes him. After discovering more information surrounding her death, he joins SEAS in an attempt to obtain justice by any means necessary. He devotes everything to confront his mother's accidental killer, Shinjiro, and take revenge. During this confrontation, it is revealed that after obtaining justice, Ken intends to take his own life, a thought that has consumed him for years since his mother's death, having no more reason to live. But after witnessing Shinjiro's sacrifice, by taking a bullet meant for him and hearing some comforting words, Ken resolves to fight for the future. To fight for the future his mother and Shinjiro would have wanted for him. A future where Ken could be a child, free of worries and despair. This wish reinstills in Ken a desire to live and make a better future. A future full of life. Shinjiro leads a guilt-ridden life, full of self-pity and shame. After a horrible incident where he lost control of his persona, unfortunately led to the death of an innocent bystander, he began to shut himself off from the world. He left SEAS and started to attend school less and less. And worse, he began to take suppressants to not only tame his persona, but also accept the lethal side effects that would ultimately take his life. He did this due to the immense regret he had for his actions, and he felt he needed to spend the rest of his life in silent atonement through a slow and painful death. He is eventually convinced to rejoin the team after hearing Ken has joined them, the son of the woman he killed. Eventually, Ken and Shinjiro finally have a conversation about what happened that night. On the anniversary of his mother's death, Ken asks Shinjiro to meet him at the site where it all happened. Ken tells Shinjiro he has no reason to live, and that he's going to kill the man. Shinjiro, having deduced Ken's intentions, accepts this outcome and will not resist. However, he tells Ken that this action is irreversible, and that doing so, he will become like Shinjiro. Before Ken can decide, a member of Strega appears and informs Ken that because he took the persona suppressors, Shinjiro will die regardless. On top of that, Shinjiro discovers that his death would also mean nothing, since Ken was planning to take his own life after the deed was done. The Strega member decides to kill them both due to his broken and warped sense of morality. Shinjiro attacks him, but is shot. When Ken falsely tells Strega that he is the one he wants to kill, since Strega wants to stop Seas from killing all the shadows and believes killing the person finding them, their navigator, will do the trick. Ken does this because he no longer wants to live, but the bullet does not take his life, but Shinjiro's. He takes the bullet to not only save Ken, but to atone for his mistakes through death. And even though he wants death, he's happy. Happy that his death meant a child, someone who he has hurt, someone who was innocent, can live a full life. He tells Ken that he matters, that his life matters. Shinjiro then stands up, walks a few feet away, and then collapses, dead. His final words mean more than I can describe. Not only has he atoned, but he wishes for others to live, and not to be tied down by his death. Because just as he says it himself, this is how it should be. Aegis isn't human, if that wasn't obvious. She is an anti-shadow suppression weapon, a machine whose sole purpose is to kill and eradicate every shadow she sees. And yet, she can summon a persona, something only capable of a being who wields a soul. She cannot come to believe that such a thing is possible, but continuously questions what it means to feel emotions, what it means to be alive, what it means to be human. She slowly begins to exhibit more human traits. She learns what free will is, and finds the resolve to choose what she wants in life. She discovers that what she wants above all else is to protect the protagonist, not just out of a sort of sense of duty, but out of love, regardless of gender. And through that care, Aegis finds the resolve to live. She obtains what can only be described as a heart, after a rather long epilogue. She finds her reason to live, her answer. And I think it's fitting that the machine, no, that the human being is the person who we are with in the protagonist's final moments. She is the last thing they see as they drift away into a final sleep, content with their choices in life, and that their friends may all live a good and long life. Because yes, at the end of Persona 3, you die. But it is not a somber death, but a peaceful and content one. Because in order to avert the fall, in order to save everyone, you must sacrifice yourself. You must use your life force to seal away all that death and destruction. But you don't do it alone. Everyone, every single social link, every single friend and companion you've made along the way helps you keep heart, seals Nyx away for good. But not just them, but your C's teammates, lifelong friends who've changed you just as much as you have changed them. Yukari, Junpei, Akihiko, Fuka, Mitsuru, Ken, Aegis, Koromaru, and even Shinjiro. Each of them reach out and give you the power to live, because the protagonist has learned the truth, the ultimate reality. They learned what the answer to life was. Friendship, family, the will to do the right thing. They learned that death must exist, and without that heartbreak, we can never truly live. We must overcome death, overcome that despair and apathetic feeling that feels ever so crushing and consuming, in order to become stronger and live life to the fullest, to see each day with optimism and joy. And while each answer may slightly vary from person to person, the fact remains that in order to fully understand what the answer of life means to you, you must first live. Thank you all so much for watching this video. It's a bit of a different format than my normal videos. So, maybe I'll do more of this. Maybe I won't. Who's to say? Just a quick addendum. I am hoping that the next video, and probably the final video of the year, maybe I'll do another one, is going to be the Moonrise video. We'll see what happens though. But with all that said, I hope you all have a nice day, and I'll see you all next time.